Welcome. It is Friday, and we're back with For Book's Sake. I am Heather Roberts,
And I am Veronica Adams.
and we're with 1852 Media, and we are going to be talking about some questions we've seen on the interwebs today from authors, and
Yes.
also some interesting new news coming out of Amazon, which is it's interesting. Let's get into that.
That's Heather being polite, y'all.
Yeah.
I would have chosen another word, and that's why she's in the driver's seat.
I mean, it's a little batshit. All right, we'll put it that way. Okay,
There we
so
go.
Amazon this week has just released a little button when you go and upload your content when you're uploading your book, and there's a whole bunch of questions you have to answer and a bunch of information that you're putting out there.
Yes.
One of the new questions is Amazon asking you to self-report if your title is AI generated content.
Right.
And it says Amazon is collecting information about the use of artificial intelligence tools in creating content. And then the question is, did you use AI tools in creating texts, images, and or translations in your book? Yes or no? And they have
What happens when I make selections though?
right. I mean, that is unclear as of yet. So let's first go through the facts. Okay.
Yeah.
So they have defined AI generated content as text, images, or translations created by an AI based tool.
Okay.
If you used an AI based tool to create the actual content, whether text, images, or translations, it
hmm
is considered AI generated, even if you applied substantial edits afterwards.
Wait. So the way I read that at first, like you're reading the explanation, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, so like outlines and like first draft cover images don't matter. But then on the back end they kick in that even if you make substantial changes afterwards. So really,
Right.
this now is a very gray area to me, because at what point, what's the definition of substantial changes?
Correct. And that they don't define. And so, well, here they have defined AI assisted content as well. So
Right.
if you, which is not, you are not supposed to self disclose. If it's AI assisted, you don't have to. Okay. If you created the content yourself and used AI based tools to edit, refine, error check, or otherwise improve that content, whether text or images, then it is considered AI assisted and not AI generated. Excuse me. Similarly, if you used an AI based tool to brainstorm and generate ideas, but ultimately created the text or images yourself, then it is also considered AI assisted and not AI generated. It is not necessary to inform us of the use of such tools or processes.
Okay, so you can use you can use AI for quality control to
Yes,
clean up your manuscript before you publish it. And
correct.
Amazon doesn't care about that.
You
You
can
can
even use
use
it to
a
brainstorm.
right, or to outline, to come up with the plot and to put a skeleton together, as long as you, the human, do all of the actual writing of the story.
I think
Also
so.
acceptable.
I
And
believe
they
that.
don't need to know about that.
But so what is put a skeleton together mean, right? Like,
Right? Right.
is it that they've I don't think that it's you could put out a rough draft. Is it you put out a rough draft, or is it, like a rough draft of a chapter and
Mhm.
then you are substantially changing? What is
Right.
substantially changing? Does that then fall into the first category?
So here's what I'm envisioning. I I have no answer to that question, first and foremost. Secondly, I'm thinking about someone who takes a bunch of really popular, just single words or very short phrases in whatever genre they're writing in. Let's go with romance. And the first
Sure.
thing that comes to my mind, billionaire romance, right? So,
Okay.
like, uh, billionaire, insert profession. I don't know. They're usually some sort of business person, lawyer, something like that, right?
Sure.
So, billionaire. businessman, and then you plug in, I don't know, city, country, small town, beach, mountains, rustic, urban, whatever you're looking for in your setting. And
Right.
then you ask AI to give you some sort of plot that you can plug in, a romantic love interest's basic details too, right?
Yeah.
And if AI generates a very basic storyline,
Yeah.
if you as the human turn that into a 40, 50, 100,000 word manuscript, you've done all of the truly creative work, but you still didn't really necessarily generate the plot.
Right, but
Like,
is I don't think that I think that's AI assisted, right?
you think that
I
falls in
think
the AI assisted
this
category?
is this is the question. What is
Right.
assisted and what is generated? I think we can all agree that if you type in like, write me a romance book with these characters and this
Mhm.
person and,
Yeah.
whatever, and it spits out a 50,000 word, I'm just making up a number,
Sure.
romance novel. And then you take that novel and you run it through Grammarly. Okay. And you
Or you
clean,
run it through your AI
yeah,
proofing
your
whatever,
AI
right?
proofing, and
Yeah.
then you publish that book, that's very clearly AI generated.
Yes.
But there's so many more nuances in the publishing process that could be assisted
Yeah.
with AI that are not necessarily immoral or illegal or,
Yeah.
terrible, that become now this gray area of what is assisted and what is not assistant. What does
Generated.
substantially edit
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
What
Well,
does
and
that
also,
mean?
uh, you and I approach ambiguities by putting our lawyer hats on, right? And
Right.
like
Yeah.
parsing things out to death. Not every KDP user is going to approach this way, right? But also, without very basic definitions, if I am using AI as an author in any way, shape, or form, I am genuinely confused about what my obligations are here with this checkbox.
Yeah.
And
Very
also,
much so.
this is the bigger problem to me. I don't I don't see in this anywhere what the repercussions are for incorrectly
Right.
reporting.
Correct.
What happens if I used AI and I just say that I didn't? How does Amazon find that out? Can Amazon find that out?
Yeah. Right
Do
now it's.
I violate terms of service at this point? Like,
Hmm. Right now it says that they are collecting information.
which
That
they're
that
doing
means
nothing with.
nothing. Yeah. Right. Like, what
Yeah.
are you doing with that information? Are you taking a survey? Because that's how that question is worded to me. You know what I
Well, I
mean?
mean,
Like,
perhaps the first step in addressing the issue of AI entering this sphere is just finding out how many users are willing to openly report that they are
well,
engaging AI on some level of the
and
journey from
that's the
inception to
key.
publication.
The self-reporting is the key. I mean,
Right.
people are,
Yeah.
who why would
Yeah.
you self-report that? Why would you self-report right now? Why would you tell on yourself without knowing any of the consequences for,
Mhm.
notwithstanding, listen, we could go down the whole moral route, whatever,
Yeah.
all that noise, right?
Right.
Because this is a very sensitive topic in the author community right now.
Mhm.
I'm ignoring that portion of it. Speaking only to the question at hand. If you are somebody who did AI generate, right? Who
Yeah.
did the whole thing, who did AI generate, why would you tell on yourself right now without knowing any of the consequences for doing so?
Oh my god, I had the exact same thought. It's like, uh, how many people see their doctor and underreport risky behavior that they engage in?
Right.
I would say probably a majority of people, whether it's contact with other people on any level or the use of substances or your diet or your exercise, whatever.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of people who underreport. And I have probably at different junctures underreported to my own doctor about various things.
And that's in a
And
confidential relationship.
right. And I know what the consequences are. I'm taking risks of not giving this person the information that they need to give me all of the advice that they can and to treat me, right?
Yeah.
In this situation, I have no idea what the risks are. And this is potentially impacting my livelihood, or at least a
Yeah.
stream of income that I rely on, or a business that I'm trying to build and turn into a stream of income that I can rely on.
And there are no guidelines right now for
Right.
what substantially edit means. And as
Hmm.
we just demonstrated, there's a big gray area here, you know?
Right.
Like what does that mean? Like we know it we like I
Well, and
said,
is it
we know
different for
what it
manuscripts
means.
versus cover art too?
Oh, sorry. I think that needed that right there. But apparently, good God. I told you this is unhinged today. But yeah, cover art. Let's get back to the point. Oh man.
Oh, I swear.
Wild.
It's just been one of those weeks.
It really
That
is.
was
I
a
was like,
laugh
where
that
did that
was
come
needed.
from? Oh, that's me. Pressing a button. I was just trying to move the mouse away from your face. Cover art, I think, is much more of a stickier wicket
Yeah.
because we've had this conversation
Yes,
before.
we have.
When you're talking about art and licenses and
Mhm.
ownership of that,
Yeah.
that is much different than talking about intellectual property with copyright for
Yes.
words. Very different. And I still do not see how you can create any image with AI and not fall into a copyright trap. How it
Mm,
can be legal. I don't see that
right.
right now.
Or step on someone's trademark or
Right.
violate a license or something of that nature. Right. Yeah.
I don't legally see it.
I suppose if the AI is carefully controlled and producing graphic content in an environment where it's only pulling from licensed images,
Sure.
but I don't think the majority of them are set up that way.
No.
So,
And also the question is the licensed image is the originator of the licensed image, are they then going to be, compensated
right,
for
right,
that license for the use of it in AI as they would
right,
in any other conglomeration of purchasing and then
right.
creating a
Well, and if you have a pre-existing license to use an image for any purpose,
right.
does that license contemplate manipulation by artificial intelligence?
I mean, I think I would be much more comfortable if, say, I went on deposit photos and I found
Sure.
5 images that I wanted to use in my fantasy novel
Right.
cover.
Yeah.
And then I went to an AI generator and had to upload those images into the AI generator. And they then would take those and make it into, I would say, take these images and make it into XYZ. And it did
Right.
that. That would be legal. That would be fine. That would be the AI would be doing the photo manipulation that a designer would do. And there's nothing wrong with
A-
that.
AI is simply stepping into Photoshop and doing
Correct.
the things that you as the human would do using the software.
Right. Which is totally fine. However, when you're just going in blank to an AI generator and saying, show me an image with, these elements in it, it's pulling them from somewhere. They didn't come up with it out of their ass. Like it's pulling it from somewhere.
Right.
And that
And does it have the
somewhere,
proper permission to pull it and to use it in the way
yeah,
that it has pulled it and used it?
probably fucking not. I mean, just to be frank, it's not. I think with text, it's a lot different because there is a lot more, if you will, public domain free words on the internet. I don't know. I don't know how else to say it. It's
The
different
written word
because
has way more fair use, and
yes.
also like the analysis of an infringement is way less stringent because words are fluid. And it's
Yeah.
entirely possible for someone to come up with something that's similar to someone else's written product without actually having stolen that from them. We had
Right.
a situation in the romance community a few years back where there was a plagiarist And the plagiarism was blatant. There were
Hmm.
sections that had been copied from a book that was published 2 or 3 years before the work that was full of plagiarism. And the only things that had been changed were like character descriptions and maybe like the names of restaurants and bars where the characters were frequenting.
Yeah.
That's a classic case of
Classic.
infringement, right?
Hmm.
But just coming up with something that seems similar, that's a much harder thing to prove
Yeah.
because it's entirely possible that someone's brain just thought of something very similar to someone else who previously published something. That can happen.
It happens often.
Right.
And it happens very frequently. And that's why you can't copyright a cover, or I'm sorry, a title name, for
Right.
example, because that would just get too insane.
Well, you can try, but
You can certainly try. But yeah, I mean, with words, it's a lot different. Also, the AI theoretically can be knowing in a way that maybe they have, just like a romance reader has read a whole bunch of books, right? Read,
right.
I use read in quotes. Read books, read articles on the internet, read, theoretically all of this stuff has been stuffed into it.
Yeah.
And so it like a thinking of AI like a person, it would be like bouncing ideas off of that other person, right?
Right.
So coming up with ideas for you or words for you to use or what have you is not the same thing as art. I think we can all agree on that. But there's just a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of gray area here. A lot. And this is not an argument that is going to be going away, number one. And I don't think resolved in any sort of short term.
Yeah.
You and I
I
know our
think it
legal
gets
system.
I think it gets way messier. There are going to be a lot of bumps before we come to a place where we have a standard set of rules for
Yeah.
how and in what capacity these tools are appropriate to be used and are not violating terms of service for selling books on, major web-based platforms or in the remaining brick and mortar bookstores that exist.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest issue that I can see right now for authors using AI to help them edit their books or clean up their
Mhm.
books and things like that. And I was talking with a client about this issue, the whole AI issue, earlier
Yeah,
this week because it is a very hot topic.
sure.
And I brought this up to this author, and I'll bring it up here. So my question is, what does the AI generator do with the content that you have provided it? So if you have uploaded your manuscript into an AI machine, we'll put it that
Mhm.
like because there's a million of them now. ChatGPT is very popular, but there are tons of others. What does it then do with that information that you have provided it?
Right.
Is it then using it just for you, for your future generative use?
Or is it
Is
now in the
it
database of
Yes,
material that it pulls from to generate
correct.
content for other users? And now your copyrighted material
Yeah,
is potentially being pulled apart and used in violation of your copyright by this automated system.
correct. And that's not clear.
Mhm.
That's not clear at all right now as to what
Right.
they do with the information that you provided. They
Right.
say that, it learns from you, what you like and what have you, which I've messed around with AI and sometimes it can get stupid. Like sometimes it's very smart and then suddenly it's just dumb again and you're like, what happened?
Well,
And
and yeah, and never mind that it often carries the bias of the people who've programmed it.
right.
And so
Absolutely.
from a diversity inclusion standpoint, how much stuff is being manipulated and or replaced to substitute the preferences of the
It's
opinions
creators.
or the
Yeah,
bias of its creators, right?
absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, if that is something I would be cautious about if you are an author and you're uploading
Hmm.
your work into these systems, even to do
Hmm.
as is apparently allowed, so says
Sure.
Amazon,
Well,
to
as does not need to be disclosed, I
as does
guess at
not
this
need to be
point. As is
disclosed.
Amazon is unconcerned about right now, as
Right.
in Amazon does not see any sort of problem with you doing it. So, yeah.
Right. To proofread or spell check or what have you.
Right.
What is then happening to that content when you've uploaded it? And I know that some people were saying that, oh, they mean what you're talking about, like Grammarly with its like AI assisted features to do like proofreading, or like
Sure.
AI features that are in other programs, not necessarily an AI program. But that's not what that says. It doesn't, you know what I mean? So that might be how some people are interpreting it, and that's a valid interpretation, but it's also not the only interpretation of
Right.
that language. So it's just very unclear as to where we sit right now with AI in this industry. It's going to be a wild ride, I think, for the next several years.
Agreed. Agreed.
Um,
I'm seeing it also invade areas where we're not really talking about copyright issues so much or any sort of trademark infringement, but I set up Facebook ads yesterday for a client. And in the regular course of business, I do that several times per week. So, yesterday, for the first time, I saw, and I may be behind the curve here, Facebook may not have delivered this feature to me before, but I saw an option to have my creative copy content reformatted and cut into neat new snippets by the automation portion
yeah.
of Facebook's ad dashboard. And I cannot tell you how inaccurate.
The suggestions were.
It completely changed the story, right?
Yeah.
So like I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, fine, let's just see what happens when I cut and paste it in. So I take the original back cover copy, the blurb, in its entirety, and I put it in the primary text box for the actual text that's going to be displayed
Yeah.
with the ad graphic all over the Meta network, right? And Facebook completely changed the story. In all three of the options it gave me for alternatives to the back cover copy,
Yeah.
completely inaccurate.
Yeah. I've
Just
tried it too.
completely inaccurate.
I've tried that just to be like, oh, let's modernize this blurb, right? Like, let's
Yeah,
see if we can get this blurb to be a little bit more modern.
right.
And I want you to, make this change, use this keyword, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
AI has spit out a blurb and changed the names of the lead characters, changed the setting,
Uh-huh.
changed everything. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what in the actual fuck? Like,
Yeah.
what now? So I mean, that just goes to show that like AI is certainly not as
It,
intelligent
it, it
as,
has its limits, which is
yeah,
another concern too. Like, how much do you want to rely on it?
yeah.
How much can you rely on it?
I mean, you heard about the attorney who wrote the AI generated brief, right?
Girl, don't even get me started
Oh,
on
yeah,
that
you heard
stuff.
about that. Yeah. And AI just made up citations to,
Citing to cases that did not
yeah,
exist, but
just,
actually creating citations in the proper format.
and just made up the
Like these
cases.
cases existed even though they did not.
Right. And yeah, dude's going in front of the grievance or the bar ethics board, as he should, because that's messed up. No, you can't do that. So like, but I understand what people are saying is like, okay, we're here now, when we will be theoretically getting to a place where it will be more accurate,
Hmm.
theoretically. So we should do things now before it gets to the place where we're going.
Right.
Valid. We need to have some sort of set of guidelines here. We need some sort of, we
There
need a
needs to be
rule
rules of the
set.
road
Yeah.
so that we're not all just out here mad maxing it, trying to figure out, how do I accomplish the thing I want to do,
Right.
not
And in the
paying
same
attention to what
vein,
other people are doing.
and how to protect your own intellectual property. because
Yes.
I would love to be able to use some of these tools more frequently. I would love for my authors to be able to use some of these tools
Mhm.
more frequently, but there's a lot of hesitancy
Sure.
with using these because of not really understanding what happens to the end information.
Yes.
Where does it go? Who owns it? What happens?
Right. Right.
And without any sort of guidelines or rules right now, I think you're going to continue to see that really big pushback. And also because there are companies out there that are just blatantly trying to use AI to replace humans in many
Mhm.
ways, which,
Well,
I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to for certain things, right? But I'm
mhm.
talking about using other people's intellectual property without compensating them for it,
Yes.
and retraining an AI system to then create new content based upon the other content that is not being proper. Like, for example, I'm talking about in like audiobooks, for example. There are
Mhm.
some companies that are just they have a little clause, look for this, authors, if you're signing any audiobook contracts, make sure that you have a clause in there that says that your content will not be uploaded to be training any sort of AI anything,
Yes.
because otherwise your content will probably be used to train an AI
Mhm.
for the purpose of creating AI generated audiobooks.
Well, there's no guarantee that that won't happen anyway, even though
Sure.
your production company or your distributor may not be allowed to under the terms of your contract. Anyone can buy your audiobook and then
Sure.
take that file and use it to train AI to do whatever they're looking to train AI to do. I saw a TikTok just a couple of nights ago. As an aside, being an elder millennial, I loved pop punk music in the late 90s and early 2000s. So I see a lot of pop punk TikToks. And
Hmm.
this one was about some guy who made a bot, an AI bot, listen to like 1,000 hours of pop punk music and then asked it to write a pop punk song.
Yeah.
And the music itself sounded pretty unique to me, definitely on brand for that style of music. But the lyrics, I was like, oh, I know exactly what song. I know exactly, just based on the words.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, none of the bands whose music were added to this AI experiment
Right.
licensed this gentleman to do what he done. It's
Right.
fun. It was entertaining for TikTok purposes. But now this particular piece of technology is probably using all of these artists' intellectual property
Right.
illegally
Well, and isn't that part
forevermore.
right? Isn't that part of what the artists, the actors are fighting about?
Yes, the Screen Actors
The
Guild.
Screen
Yeah,
Actors
the
Guild?
SAG-AFTRA strike. Absolutely,
Yeah.
that's what it's about.
There's a
They
big portion
are
of it.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, because
They
it's my
want their intellectual
understanding.
property protected, and
Right.
they not
And
only
their
don't want to be
faces.
replaced by the technology, they don't want to not be fairly compensated
Right.
for this intellectual property being used in such a way to save all of these big studios so much money over time,
Right.
reducing the
That
number of writers
using
that it needs
their
to engage.
using their likeness in
Yes.
future projects without
Mhm.
requiring any compensation to
Right.
the original actor whose
Right.
likeness it is.
Right.
And that's what the big studios want to do. They want them
They've
to
already
just
started
sign
doing it.
away. Yeah.
I believe Carrie Fisher has appeared posthumously in multiple Star Wars films.
Yeah. And
So,
I mean, it's like sweet and nice when it's done in that way, right? But
sure.
when you start thinking about doing it, and well, we don't even really need the actor, we can just use voice altering AI and their likeness that we have the
Yep.
ability to grab and manipulate it how we want. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now
We
this
will
is getting
CGI
concerning.
their physical presence into the scene, and we will use AI generated audio content to run the dialogue through a filter that sounds just like them.
Yeah.
Done.
Now we're concerned. Right.
Right.
So it's a lot of that is seeping into the publishing industry in the same way. It just has different
All,
connotations.
all creatives are going to be impacted by
Yeah.
AI, whether you are an actor, an artist, a musician, a writer, a photographer, whatever media you work in as a creative, you're going to be impacted by AI
Yeah.
somehow.
And
if you haven't
there's
already.
going to have to be rules of the road somehow. It's going to have to be regulated in a way
Yeah.
that makes it legal and
Mhm.
compensates people whose work is being used. I mean, just that's how it,
Or their
yeah,
estates or
or
whatever. Yeah.
whatever, right? Whatever the
Yeah.
case may be.
Mhm.
But well, let's get to a question or two.
Yeah. Let's answer some questions.
So I saw a question on the interwebs that is an author who's asking others to explain the benefits of having as many reviews as possible on the Amazon. Is having a large number of reviews more beneficial than having a small number of reviews? What does that do? Et cetera, et cetera. And so it used to be, people used to say, like, if you get 50 reviews on the first day of release, that it'll trigger something in the Amazon algorithms and it'll help boost you up in the rankings, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if that ever was true. Um, honestly,
It's a nice thought.
it's a nice thought. But I've seen books in the top 100 with 5 reviews.
Sure.
So it is not
Sure.
indicative of you being able to sell books whatsoever.
Well, I think the automations that run Amazon behind the scenes don't always automatically update in real time together. So
That's
it's
true too.
entirely possible for store rank to be changing independently of
Right.
engagement with the review section of the book listing. Period. And we've
Absolutely.
seen Amazon hold reviews from users for days.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
after you submit a review, it doesn't automatically get published.
No.
Amazon scans that content to make sure that it doesn't violate their terms of service. And sometimes they don't
Yeah.
publish a review that is a good review in the sense that it does not violate terms of service and contain words that it shouldn't. I don't know, 4 or 5 days sometimes, a
Oh
week.
yeah. They can hold them for a minute. For a
Sure.
minute.
Sure.
So, and also, I think just generally speaking, the short answer is no. You don't need a ton of reviews in order to sell books, right? Like
No.
that, you don't need to have them listed there. However, from a reader perspective,
Mhm.
when you're looking and scrolling through Amazon, when you're trying to find a new book to read, and you see
Mhm.
a book that has 3,000 reviews on it,
Yep.
and you see a book that has 12 reviews on it,
Yep.
you're more likely to be drawn to the book that has 3,000 reviews on it because
Yeah.
you mentally view that as a more popular, better book.
Sure. Sure. Psychologically, you're giving the
Psychologically.
cue that this is a higher quality read or a better book to choose. More people have read it and have had things to say about it.
Right.
Not everybody is going to have the the time to think, okay, well, I should look and see how long ago this book was published. Has it been out for a while versus is this one with lower reviews brand new?
Right.
I don't think a lot of readers think that way. Many do, but
Many do.
certainly not all of them. And so the more reviews you have, for some
Yeah.
readers, maybe even a majority of readers, the more likely they are to pick up your book and give it a try, especially if they've never read you before.
I will also say, from the author perspective, the more reviews, the
Mhm.
better too, because when you do get that 1-star review, it's not going to tank your rating if you have, 500 reviews on your title, in
Right.
the same way that it
Right.
will if you have 5 reviews on your
Mhm.
title. So, having more positive reviews on your title is going to protect you from that sort of that issue when inevitably you get that 1 or 2 star, because it's going to
Yes.
happen.
Yes. But also the counterpoint to that is that the more reviews you collect, generally speaking, the lower your average rating is likely to be simply
Sure.
because nobody writes a book that everyone loves. Your book is
Absolutely.
not going to be for everyone.
It's not. And nor should
And
it
you're
be.
going to run into a lot of people who rate lower than your super fans do, or your street team does, or your
To
newsletter subscribers.
to a lot of people, like a lot of people, a 3-star review is great. Like readers. To
Yeah.
authors, a 3-star review is shitty. And
And candidly, to us, to 1852 Media, a 3-star review is sort of like the bar is on the floor.
yeah,
If you can give our authors 3 stars, by all means, please go ahead and review that book right away.
yeah.
if you're going to give it less than 3 stars, can you let us get through the release window before
Yeah.
you go out and tell people this one wasn't for you? Like,
Right. Just hold
give us a
off.
week.
Give us a week,
Give
please.
us a week.
Give us a little time. But yeah, from an author's perspective, if they're not getting a 4 or 5 star,
They failed.
They failed. And the reason that is because it looks really bad on the reviewing platforms
Right.
when it's a 3 star. So when you put that 3 star up there and you only have 3 out of 5, it just pulls all of the rankings down, and it does look bad compared to other books, right? So that's the reason that they don't like the 3 star. It's obviously your review is your review, whatever it is. I'm not telling you that you have to
Sure.
post 4 or 5 star reviews. Please don't let this turn into that.
As
That
a
is not
reader,
what
I
I'm
want your
saying.
reviews to be honest anyway.
Yes.
Like if it was a DNF or like the worst book you've ever read, I want to know that.
Yeah.
Like as a reader.
Yeah.
I want to be prepared to like filter that possibility as I'm giving the book a chance, and also maybe to judge you because I disagree with you, right? And that's
right,
a natural
whatever
human thing to do.
the case may be.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of readers look at 3 star reviews as like, oh, it was good. The book was good. And so I'm going to give it a 3 star review. There's like nothing negative like in their mind about it at all. And that's
3 stars is totally worth my time.
And I find that that's valid. I mean, I do see,
Totally.
I understand an author's perspective. I obviously we're on this side of things as well. And I see that, but I have had to talk many an author off the ledge and be like, listen, a 3 star review is actually good. I understand what it does to the right. I understand, but there's nothing negative about a 3 star review. It's just so. It just means that they didn't love it. They just found it. They didn't hate it either. They just, you're right in the middle, my friend.
Yep.
Ambivalence. But
yeah.
The point, obviously having the more reviews, the better, right? Like it does help for social proof, if for nothing else. So I think that, you want to have as many as possible.
Yes.
Having them be organic and verified is obviously wonderful.
Yes.
That's what you ideally want. But having some ARC reviews to start it off is not a bad thing either.
Sure. Well,
and there are a lot of ARC readers that do buy the books that they love. So that is very...
Or borrow them from Kobo Plus or Kindle Unlimited so that they still get that verification with their review.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Good question.
That was a good question. Someone asked about trademarking a pen name, if that's something that others have done and if they should do it themselves. And that is a very good question. And if you have a brand that you want to protect, yes. You should trademark it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But also, before you go further than your pen name or your brand name, please go Google Cockygate.
Yes. Yes.
About how far not to take it.
Go to the Google machine and do a little Romance Landia history lesson for yourself.
There have been multiple attempts over the years for titles to be trademarked or other things related to publishing to be trademarked. I feel like that was the one where sort of there was the perfect storm or enough gas was thrown on the fire.
Yeah.
But certainly with your pen name. Absolutely.
Yeah. Your pen name, even a series name that you've been writing in the series for a while and you have 12 books in it, whatever. I'm just making up a number, but a series name, a pen name, you're building a brand off that. Yes. Go trademark it. Trademarking is not super cheap, but it's worth it. And then you have to remember, though, you have to protect that trademark. Not legal advice, just, throwing it out there.
Consult an intellectual property attorney near you.
Yes. Let's see. There's, some people have been talking about writer's block and what do you do when you have writer's block? And I think that that's just the nature of our society today, is being very burned out. Like that is not that. I feel like writer's block often comes from burnout. And in our society, with all of the constant, overwhelming everything that is constantly being thrown, I said constantly 12 times, but to point out the emphasis of it, it is so overwhelming at times that it's surprising to me when people do not get burned out. It just because of the
No,
nature of this industry.
we have experienced as a species, not just as a society in the United States where we are, but as a species, we've experienced a collective a collective threat in the last 3 years in the form of the pandemic,
Right.
the likes of which we have only experienced on much smaller scale in, regionally
Mm-hmm.
in the course of most of our lifetimes. I'm not sure that anyone is remaining alive from the last global pandemic.
Right.
And,
Right.
and if they are, they're very few. So that combined with how our lives have had to change drastically as a result of that, and economic forces and cultural expectations and so much that goes into it. How could you not be at capacity on something from time to time?
Right.
Whether it's your ability to be creative as someone who uses creativity to generate income, or in your interpersonal relationships, or in your own care of self, like sometimes something just has to give. I think it's
Right.
totally normal to experience writer's block and to just be burnt out as a creative.
Yeah.
Totally normal.
Totally normal. And I know that when that happens, you feel frustrated because you're like, oh, I'll just push through it. But there's not a big pushing through that. You really have to take the time to find, just take a break. And some
Hmm.
people feel that they can't do that because of financial reasons or what have you.
Sure.
But something has to give because it's all not going to get better on its own.
Right.
You need to find a way to make that work for you again in whatever way
Yeah.
that looks like. Whether it's changing up how many releases you're having, or pushing one back, or
Mhm.
taking a long weekend when you otherwise wouldn't have, or
Yeah.
something to that effect. I mean,
Experimenting with writing shorter stories. If
yeah,
you're someone who likes to write a 70, 80, 90,000 word manuscript, see how you feel about a 40,000 word short novel slash novella,
yeah.
keep your
And
publishing schedule, but reduce the pressure to produce quite as much content with that schedule.
maybe take a break from social media.
Hmm.
Maybe just focus on your writing and take a break from all the other extraneous things that go along with it.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to find
absolutely.
a way to make it not as terrible because it's so easy to fall into that trap and then be stuck, right? Like
Hmm.
it's like quicksand.
Yeah.
So I for those of you experiencing writer's block, we wish you nothing but the best, and we hope that you can find a way to gain a little peace this weekend. I think that that's probably all the time we have for author questions today, but we'll certainly
Cool.
be going back through. And if you have an author question, please let us know, and we're happy
Hmm.
to address it in our next episode.
Absolutely.
And Veronica, do you have a tip for us this
You
week?
want? Would you like an evergreen marketing tip this
I
week?
would
I have
love
one.
one.
So, don't neglect your network.
Oh, that is a great one.
Don't neglect your network. And what I mean by that is you should have connections with other people who do what you do, and also connections with people who do things that support what you do.
Hmm.
And if you do not have those connections yet, you should be actively working on making them and building them and fostering them. As an author, attend author events, you know, sign up to go to signings and have a table where you meet readers and other authors, or attend professional events, conferences where you can learn to hone your craft or learn marketing tools, anything where you will be around other people who write. And then once you have a network, use it. Reach
Yeah.
out to these people that you know and ask for cross promotional favors, and offer to engage with them when they also need cross promotional support, or get together and do group projects, brainstorm, just hang
Yeah,
out together and do sprints when you're writing. Like it really pays
it
to
does.
build that network and then maintain it, because other people are often not the key to our success, but certainly some of the building blocks along the way to getting there.
They can absolutely help you in so many different ways.
Mhm.
and you can help them in so many different ways. And it's just really great to have that network.
Yep.
Also, that you can rely on when things aren't always going great. And you just need
Yes.
to vent and scream to somebody who is
Gets it.
understanding. Yeah, who gets
Yep.
it. So great tip
Absolutely.
this week, Veronica.
Thank
High
you.
five for that. So next weekend, actually, when this drops, when this podcast drops, the next day, I will be going to Witchy in Salem. I think that's what it's
Fun.
called. A book signing event. So there we'll be talking about what happened there, and hopefully, I can impart some interesting information after I get back.
I can't wait.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, until next time, here's the song again. Oh man, I'm the best.
TGIF.